Today, we're going to dig into a fear that's surprisingly common. It's not about spiders or heights. Nope. It's about something you find in a classroom. And we're going to ask a really important question. Are the tools scientists use to measure this fear even any good? So, let's dive in.
Seriously, have you ever heard the word statistics or p-values and just felt your heart start pounding a little faster? Maybe your palms get a bit sweaty? If so, you are so not alone. It's a feeling that tons of students, and yeah, even professionals, know all too well. But what is that feeling really?
Right, so science actually has a name for this, and our first step here is to get a handle on what exactly we're talking about.
It's called statistics anxiety. And it's this specific kind of anxiety that pops up a lot with students in fields you might not expect, like psychology or sociology. Think about it. These are people who are super passionate about understanding human behavior, not necessarily crunching numbers, but their work totally depends on it.
And look, this isn't just about feeling a little nervous before a test. The fallout from this is actually pretty serious. Of course, it can lead to bad grades, but it also makes students shy away from or even completely avoid doing research. And long term, it can literally push people away from awesome career paths just because they involve data. So the takeaway here, this is a big deal with real-world consequences.
Okay, so if this is such a big problem, what do we do about it? Well, in science, before you can fix anything, you got to be able to measure it. Think of it like a mechanic trying to fix a car engine. You can't just guess what's wrong. You need the right tools, the wrenches, the diagnostic computers to figure it out. It's the same in psychology. To understand something like anxiety, researchers need really precise tools like questionnaires and scales to measure what a person's actually feeling. Having an accurate tool is everything.
And this is where our story gets really interesting. This is the central mystery. What if the very tools, the scales that scientists have been relying on for decades to measure statistics anxiety, what if they're not as reliable as we think? What if the ruler is bent?
Well, this is exactly the question a team of researchers decided to answer. They basically decided to play detective and put every single one of these measurement tools under a microscope.
So they did what's called a systematic review. Now, this isn't about running new experiments. It's more like a super thorough audit of all the research that's already out there. And they have to follow this incredibly strict set of rules to make sure their own biases don't creep in. Their investigation started with a huge, wide net. They searched 5 of the biggest scientific databases for any study that even mentioned measuring statistics anxiety. And that initial search? It pulled in 225 different studies. A whole mountain of potential evidence to sift through.
But you can't just look at everything. You need to separate the good stuff from the noise. And their process for doing that, it was super strict. First, they only looked at studies from respected, peer-reviewed journals. Then they zoomed in on just the self-report questionnaires, because those are the most common tools. And then, the final and most crucial step, they graded the scientific quality of every single study. So after all of that filtering, after all that whittling down, how many studies were left standing? Just 28. That's it. From that mountain of 225, only 28 made the final cut. These were the absolute best of the best, the highest quality evidence out there. And these 28 studies were all focused on the quality and accuracy, what scientists call the psychometric properties, of 8 main measurement scales that are used all the time in this field. It's basically a deep dive into the report cards for these tools. All right, so the evidence is in. The investigation is over. What did they find? What's the final verdict on these tools we've all been using? Well, like a lot of things in science, it wasn't a simple thumbs up or thumbs down. On the one hand, yeah, the tools we have can capture the important parts of statistics anxiety. They aren't totally useless. But, and this is a big but, the analysis also uncovered some major psychometric limitations. In plain English, they found some serious flaws in how these tools are built and how reliable they actually are. And you might be sitting there thinking, okay, so the tools are a little wonky. Why does that matter so much? Well, this is the whole point of the story. This is why it's so important. It really all boils down to one simple idea. If your measurement tool is flawed, your results are going to be flawed too. It's like a chain reaction. A flawed tool gives you flawed data, which leads to flawed conclusions. Think about it. If you're testing a new way to teach stats, but your tool for measuring anxiety is off, you might get the completely wrong answer about whether your new method works.
This is exactly why the researchers put it so bluntly in their conclusion. They're sending a clear warning to the entire scientific community. They're telling their fellow researchers, hey, you either need to use the absolute best, most trusted tools we have, or, and this is the important part, you have to do the extra homework to double-check your tool to make sure your results are actually accurate.
And that's really the thought I want to leave you with. This isn't just about statistics anxiety. It's about the very foundation of science itself. It's a powerful reminder that making progress isn't just about finding new answers. It's also about constantly checking and improving the tools we use to find those answers. Because at the end of the day, if our tools for understanding a problem are flawed, how can we ever really hope to solve it?